watched our recent DIY organizing series and thought, nope, not for me. Or maybe you thought, yes, how can I get these results faster? You might be ready to hire a professional organizer. I'm Mary,
And I'm Adrian.
and we've been professional organizers for years. We hear from so many of you saying, I want to hire someone, but what if they judge my mess? Or, I don't really understand what a professional organizer does or how the whole process really even works. Well, let me tell you something. When most people see a mess, we see an opportunity. And this video is to answer your questions and walk you through exactly what working with an organizer looks like.
Yes, today we're going to give you the insider questions that separate great organizers from the ones that might not be the right fit. We'll also let you know how to make the most of your session, and we'll answer rapid fire style the questions that you guys have pre-submitted to us. You'll walk away knowing exactly what to expect, and bonus, we have a free printable checklist that we'll leave in the description box below so you're ready to hire your first professional organizer. Okay, so before we dive into the detailed questions, let's just talk about the different types of organizers that are out there because this really affects everything. And I don't know if everybody knows, Mary, about the different types.
Well, you have your aesthetic organizers, and those are the ones that create those gorgeous Instagram photos with matching containers and color-coded everything, and they're amazing. And if that's what you're looking for, you're going to want an aesthetic organizer. But those jobs do get expensive because bins and beautiful storage, they cost a little something. And just like when you DIY, you need to clear the clutter first and get a fairly good idea of how to organize before you can make your home look magazine perfect. Now, then you have functional organizers, and that would be us.
Hmm.
We focus on creating systems that work for your real life and not necessarily the prettiest systems. Sometimes shopping your home for solutions or bins and providing you with recommendations.
Yeah. And there is also a need to use both types of organizers. So a lot of times you can hire a functional organizer to help with the first couple steps of the total organizing process, right? So we're talking the mind work, the decluttering, and that initial round of organization. And then once you have the system that you think is pretty much working for you, that's a great time to bring in an aesthetic organizer to optimize and beautify the space. Again, when we're talking about aesthetic organizers, we're really talking about somebody who's leaning a little bit closer to that interior decorating style. They're looking at the colors, the textures, the visual appeal. Mary, you and I both know several aesthetic organizers who went on to actually become interior decorators and designers.
Mhm.
It's something to consider. For most of the part, you want a functional organizer. And if you are working with an aesthetic organizer, you just want to set those expectations up ahead. Like, do you want the full magazine worthy, or do you want them to focus more on the foundational aspects? Mary and I both offer virtual organizing, and I find it's fantastic, Mary. So for me, I have a lot of clients who live in more remote locations, or they want to work with me, but we don't live close enough to make it make sense for them. And it's also way more affordable, right? Because there's less travel, less expense. But it's also great if you're somebody who's just not ready to have somebody come into your physical home or into your physical space.
Professional organizers also tend to specialize in different types of organization or clients. I mean, personally, I specialize in transitional downsizing as well as traditional home organizing.
Yes. And while I do some in-home organization, I really like to specialize in helping small businesses and entrepreneurs who are kind of getting their businesses started with all the stuff that is involved in those systems, and then also helping individuals with their paperwork.
So we all have different strengths, which is why it's so important to find the right match for your specific needs. Now, here's something really crucial. Not everyone calling themselves a professional organizer actually is one. Be cautious of people who've only organized their own spaces and maybe helped some friends and family, but don't have the experience or training to handle the different situations professionally. They may be just starting their business, and this is a great way to support them if you already know what you want to declutter and your organizing style, and you just want help versus professional guidance. When you have that initial call, a trained professional should be able to clearly explain their overall process, ask you questions to help clarify your needs and the needs of your household. This kind of back and forth will help you, the client, to understand if the organizer is versed in areas such as physical limitations and neurodivergent organizing. It will also help the organizer to have a clearer picture of your desired outcome as the client.
It's also important that you understand what professional organizers don't necessarily do. Again, this will vary by individuals, but by and large, most professional organizers are not covered by their insurance to do things like house cleaning, moving, packing items to move, handyman work, or junk removal. These are outside of our scope. When we are looking at professional organization, we're looking at creating systems and helping you make decisions about your belongings. While we can't necessarily install built-in shelving for you, we can recommend individuals that will do that. And while we will help you with decluttering the items, and in some cases taking the items to your trash can or whatever, if you have a large amount of items that you need to get rid of or furniture that needs moved, that's where we can recommend junk haulers for you so that you can still have those resources and we'll work alongside them so you're still making progress, but it's outside of our scope. And these aren't just preferences, because honestly, Mary, sometimes it would just be so much easier if we could clean things and get the whole space perfect. But the problem is that our insurance doesn't allow it. So if we were to spill a chemical or cause a reaction on your dining room table, we're not rich enough to cover that.
Mm.
So remember, these are limitations that protect us and you. Just make sure that you're having that conversation with your individual. Now, I know, Mary, you and I both also offer donation haulaway. So I'll do like one vehicle donation haulaway as a service to my clients because I want them to have that extra breathing room and feel like the project is complete when I leave. But that's because it's okay for my policy and it's okay with my time. So just don't expect it to be the same between individuals and just have that open conversation. The final point, Mary, for this section is just to remember that while we talk about professional organizing in the home setting, we also do a lot of work in office settings. So if you're an entrepreneur or a small business or a big business and you need help with organizing, professional organizers can come in and help you create systems, they can create workflow, and also help with that paperwork.
Let's talk about why you might want to hire a professional organizer. Clients reach out to us for a variety of reasons. You may want to hire a professional organizer if you're overwhelmed by your current season of life or the project in front of you. Remember, the hardest part about decluttering isn't the physical work, it's the learning about who you are and processing through the emotions that our items can hold. If you want to kickstart that project and see results fast, maybe have one room fully organized and seeing those items actually leave your house restores your confidence to tackle other areas of your home. I'll give you a personal example. I have any number of clients right now that I will leave their house. And before I come back for the second round, they're sending me photos of, look, I organized my refrigerator, or look, I tackled the drawer. Maybe we had done the pantry together, or maybe we'd done a bedroom together. I mean, it is so exciting to watch them take what they've learned and apply it to other areas before I can even get back there. So it's beneficial for both of us. I love to see it, and it's good for them. You may also want to contact an organizer if you DIY'd your cluttering and organization, but need help in optimizing the space and finding the right solutions for your home.
Absolutely. It's also great if you are someone who may have a disability or a processing challenge. So, for example, like if you have physical constraints like limited energy, mobility, or really any other reason, professional organizers are usually the answer. We can design spaces and systems that meet your needs. If it's hard for you to process through your own items, or if you're constantly questioning yourself, we can also be there to kind of act like your decluttering friend. We'll talk you through your decisions and even help you put some safety nets so you have progress, not regrets. And if you're facing a major life challenge, like either you're just in a really busy season of life or you just are overwhelmed by how hectic your house has got, like, we've all been there. We walk into a room and we're like, ugh. You just want to walk out. This is the perfect scenario for hiring a professional organizer. You can't hire a cleaner who will come in and declutter and put away all your items, but a professional organizer will. So if you're in just that overall state, let us come in and even just a few hours, we can knock out so much together that you'll be able to feel like you're not alone in the process and that you have support and that it's finally doable. Kind of like the idea of body doubling. I think it's also, Mary, a lot of times I'll meet with clients and they'll be like, I just feel like I'm on my own. It's very hard to organize or declutter when your family member's just chilling out on the couch, right? Or you're not getting that help that you want. And so sometimes having us come over, it just makes it feel like you're not alone. You can do this, and it gives you that extra bolt of energy. And we can also work with your family. So if your family is kind of like the holdup, or you're not exactly sure how to get started and move together as a unit, professional organizers can help explain the process and answer questions versus you trying to convince them on your own. Because I think we all hear it better when it comes from a third party, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we work great with kids and other family members because we're the neutral party. And we can ask them why they're holding on to certain things without all that emotional baggage and accusation and just all that, the dynamics that happen in a family. Now, I do want to be clear. I want to be clear, very clear about something. Professional organizers are not therapists. If you're dealing with true grief clutter or a hoarding situation, you'll need an organizer who specializes in that with extra mental health training or someone who works in partnership with your therapist or your care team. Professional organizing is a solid investment. It usually costs less than what you'd think, but it does take time and money. But like any good investment, it pays you back when you can find things easily in your home, save time not looking for something lost or buying duplicates, and stop feeling like a failure because your home isn't where you want it to be.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the essential questions every client should be asking. First, it comes back to that insurance and payment structure. So, a professional organizer should carry liability insurance. If they don't, that's a red flag. You want to know that they're covered if something gets damaged, or worse, if someone gets hurt. And the payment structure refers to items like deposits, fees, packages. Every organizer has their own unique system. So some people will charge by the hour, some people will charge by the space. Some people will include things like travel time, prep time, shopping time, and others will charge extra for those. So you just want to make sure that you're understanding the full cost up front. Most professional organizers that I know, Mary, and I know myself, we like to work in 3 to 4 hour chunks of time. So that gives you enough time to actually make a difference in the space, but it also helps us block out our calendars for travel, prep, hallway, all that kind of stuff. But it's also not too overwhelming with the client. I find like if the client is actually working alongside me, which for me is usually the case if I'm in their home, after about 3 hours, they're kind of hitting that decision fatigue, right? So to give you an idea, the typical rates for a professional organizer are between $55 and $150 per hour. Again, that's going to be based on their location, their expertise, and the demand. And if you find somebody who is way cheaper or way above that range for your region, just make sure that you're asking why that is. Like, are they including extra things that the other person isn't, or are they maybe starting out in their career? And I know that that sounds like a lot of money, but if you think about it, it's only a few $100s and you're going to be able to get that substantial progress in your space.
And talking about that, here's what you get for that investment during the session. You're getting so much information from the organizer. We're telling you what we see about your home, helping you identify what will and will not work for you and your family, suggesting specific containers and storage solutions, giving you an overall game plan, and you actually get to clear a room of items. That is a lot of value packed into 3 hours. Another factor to consider is training and certification. Here's the thing. There's no one certification body that is better than another. Some organizers go through NAPO or ICD, others take individual courses, some learn through mentorship. What matters is they're continuing to grow in their field. Ask them, how did you learn about organizing? How did you stay current? A good organizer will mention podcasts or YouTubes or continuing education, conferences, and other resources. They use all of this to keep improving and learning. For me, I have a variety. I have done some NAPO classes, I've done some ICD classes, I have taken paper training, I've done other organizers training, and I stay up to date. As my husband laughs, he goes, if you're not working, you're looking at videos and reading about organizing. So it's important to stay on top of things.
Absolutely. And again, it doesn't depend on the area too. Like where we live, having a NAPO chapter, it doesn't make sense because we're so far from a large city. The other thing is the confidentiality of photos. And this gets a little bit tricky, right? Because as a prospective client, you want to see before and after photos. You want to make sure that they can back up their work. But as an individual who's getting their home organized, you don't want your personal spaces on the internet. And you also don't kind of want to let people know that you worked with a professional organizer, right? Or like you're a secret helper. In fact, it's a lot of reasons why professional organizers don't put logos on their cars. You don't want to have that in your driveway. You want people to think, oh, I got this on my own. Keep that in mind when you're looking at someone that they might not have a big portfolio because they're respecting their client's confidentiality, but also make sure that you're asking that of your professional organizer. Hey, when you're in my space, are you going to be doing video? Are you going to be taking photos? And if you're not comfortable with that, just ask them upfront that you don't want that to happen. Personally, Mary, I don't even ask for it anymore because it's just so awkward. So unless it's like a really cool like organizing product and it's very specialized, for me, I just feel like I'd rather them feel more comfortable working with me and they can see my expertise in other ways.
Hmm. Yeah. I am like you. I rarely take any before and after photos that will ever be published on Google Business or YouTube or website,
Mhm.
unless if it's a really extraordinary after photo and the client is okay with it, I may ask, but it's no longer a regular part of my practice.
Yeah, because I just want people to feel comfortable working with me. And a lot of times I'm working with really sensitive stuff. It's like
Yeah,
I wouldn't want that in my own home, you know?
yeah.
And that brings us to the initial consultation process. So this is when you have a actual conversation like about what you're expecting and what the professional organizer, can help you with. And for me, I do a lot of these on the phone, but these can be in person, they can be over the phone or on something like Zoom. So a good organizer in this process should be asking about your lifestyle, your challenges, and what that success would look like for you. I kind of think that if someone gives you a price over the phone without seeing your home, unless they're doing it by hour, that's a little bit concerning. That's to me, that's a little bit of a red flag because I know as a professional organizer, there's so many factors that go into how long a project will take, right? So one of them is you. Are you ready to make decisions? Are you going to want to tell me every single story about every single item in your home and you want me to give you that attention? That's going to really expand that process, right? The other thing is like, things can move in and out of a space. And if I actually were to drive to every single site that I work on, that would add a huge amount of cost into my hourly rate, right? Because then I have to compensate myself for that time that I'm driving, the mileage, all that stuff for all the projects. So I personally don't go in person for most of my jobs, but every organizer is a little bit different on that. The other thing that you would want to ask them about is what do they do in terms of supplies and do they have an extended team? So, for example, will they shop for the organizing supplies or would they rather just give you the recommendations and you buy them yourself? Again, cost is a big factor on this and time, right? Do they have contractors that they work with? Do they also know other organizers that they can partner with if you have a bigger job that you need done in a time frame? So it's those little practical details that really add up. Other things that you may want to ask them is mileage. So if they're traveling to and from your home or doing donation drops, do they charge? Do they not? And again, this could also depend on how far you are from the organizer. And then they offer maintenance packages. So sometimes you can sign up to actually have the organizer once they do your home come back like, maybe once a year or twice a year just to make some adjustments. And I know, Mary, you said that you actually have clients that hire you after the holiday season to come and help them.
Yes, I come through and like I'll put away all of their Christmas, reorganize and organize and put away all of their Christmas decor and Christmas tree decorations. Or I'll come in quarterly and help them update their paperwork, that type of thing. Yep. You also want to ask about their experience with your specific situation. When you're kind of interviewing the organizer, maybe you have ADHD, or maybe you have members of your family that have a neurodivergency. Find someone who understands neurodivergent organizing. If you're downsizing, maybe you are a senior and you're getting ready to move from a large house into a much smaller unit. You want someone who helped people through that process because that can be a very emotional process. Maybe you have young kids. You want to make sure they know how to create systems that work for families. You do want to connect with that person. If it feels good, it is good. Like I'm much more emotionally sensitive and probably would be better handling your sentimental items. whereas Adrian has a different strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the organizer should also be open to you about that. If you start talking about something like, I know I've had people contact me like, "Oh, can you help set up a nursery?" Like, no, I can't. It's not my strength, right? But if you need help with your paperwork, call me up.
Adrian is the gal. And also ask how the day of will work. Be sure to, address any concerns you have. Like if you know it's hard to part with certain items or if you know you're going to get overwhelmed, I mean, let them know that. And that's very legitimate. And see how they respond. Tell them how involved you'd like to be. Some of our clients are hands-on and some of us give us the keys and say, let yourself in and go for it. You can also at that time address any concerns. You don't want them maybe handling your papers, or you want them to stay specifically in that space that they were in, whether it's a bedroom or a pantry. You don't want them in other parts of the home at this time. And communicate if there are hazardous materials, pets and other people in the home during our visits. And by hazardous materials, I'm gonna be upfront. Firearms, that type of thing is very important to let people know about. And then
Medical supplies,
medical
pet
supply.
waste,
I'm sorry, what's the other thing?
like pet waste. Like a lot of homes I have like have mice or they have pet waste, like just so we know and we can put gloves on and be ready for that.
Right. So we can keep everybody safe, including ourselves. So that's very important. And make sure someone knows that you have a service provider coming over for your own basic safety for everybody. We are going to a stranger's house and somebody's letting a stranger, us, into their house. So we just want everybody to be safe.
Okay, so what are some of the deeper concerns that we hear often from our clients, or we know if we were a client, we would be wondering? I think the first question that we usually get asked is, why should I pay you to do something that I could do myself? And we just did a whole DIY series, right?
Yeah.
But there is something different. So I think a great analogy for this is cutting your own hair. So obviously, you can cut your own hair with no experience. That would not go well. You can learn about it on YouTube. But again, going to that barber or a hairdresser, it's just worth that extra amount of money, right? You just get better results, quicker results, and you're moving on and you're living in your desired world versus a botched up hairdo. Or versus like if you, God forbid, did the Marie Kondo and you pulled everything out on your own and now you have even more mess. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons. We also have seen so many kitchens, closets, home offices. We literally geek out on this stuff all the time. So we're looking at the containers. We're trying stuff in our own home. We know what's actually going to work long term and which will fall apart probably in a few months. So we can kind of spot that difference between I need this, I think I might need this one day, and we can guide you. And that is so valuable in itself. And then
Mhm.
again, like we said, timeline wise, I personally surprised myself by how much I accomplished in one session with a client. Like in a couple hours, you could just knock out so much. We talked about this in the mindset video, but a typical kitchen usually takes 6 to 8 hours, I would say, to organize a typical kitchen, Mary. But we're working the entire time. We're at your house. We don't care what kind of food you have. We don't care if the laundry needs flipped. We don't care if there's a mailman stopping by, right? It's not our home. We're just focused on getting that out. And so because we don't have that distraction, we're getting so much more time out there. And I think that's just the value of having professional organizers who are solely focused on you and your home for that part of time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Another question is, how do I get my family on board? Because, usually it's the female head of the household, the mother, the wife that is the initial one looking at organizing. So sometimes you can do some pre-work with your family before the organizer shows up. Express to your husband, your kids, your wife, whomever, your why you want to have this happen. And talk a little bit about the mindset with your family. How would everyone like the space to feel? How would everyone like the space to function? You want it, easy to keep tidy, easy to find things, calm. And let the organizer be the motivation. Maybe if they know that organizer is coming to the space, they may be more willing to help, maybe declutter their own items, that type of thing. Also set some groundwork rules. If it's a community space, what control do we have over what stays and what goes? If it's someone else's space, how much control do they have of what they can keep and what they can say they want to leave? And let us be the communicator. It's okay. We're fine answering questions and concerns. And also, we want to listen and hear what thoughts the family have.
Another question that we hear, Mary, is how involved do I need to be? And this is completely up to you and your personal comfort level, and it can change during the session. Some clients want to be very involved initially, and then once they kind of feel like, okay, this person understands me and I trust them, then maybe they want to step out for a little bit. But just to make sure that line of communication is open. So a lot of times, clients want to stay with us because they want to learn the skills that will allow them to maintain their space and work on future spaces. Some clients still just need time, right? And they would rather just communicate up front what their expectations are. And then, we'll just make piles. Like I know, Mary, when I don't have my client there, I basically have like, hey, when are we going to touch base so we can move forward and be like, here's what I think that you should declutter. Here's what I think you should trash. And then it's easy for them to just go through and say like, yes, this works or no, it doesn't. Um, if you're someone who needs to touch every item now, and you need to discuss every choice that you're making, that's okay. But just make sure that you understand this and take us a lot longer to get through your belongings. If you're somebody who's comfortable saying keep the everyday dishes accessible and put the fancy stuff up high, we can move a lot faster. But it's all about you and your process. And again, this is where the mindset piece of the organization cycle is huge. We'll leave the link to our video about that below. But when you're able to say, like, I am ready to get rid of all of XYZ category, or I know I want to make these changes to make my life easier, we're able to take that information and implement it for you.
Another question is, will I be forced to part with my items? Well, the short answer is no. No, you are in control. But remember, just like any good coach, an organizer will make suggestions of items that may no longer be serving you or provide guidance of how much needs to be parted with to make the space function. Try not to get offended. It's really hard, but instead express why you like a certain item. We may see a ratty sweatshirt. Well, you see a comfort item that you got in college from your first boyfriend. We get it. Just let us know what's going on. Now, here's how to make the partnership work for you. Before we arrive, don't tidy up. Seriously, we need to see how you actually live, not the cleaned up version. If you're worried, you can secure anything that's truly valuable, documents, cash, jewelry. But again, we're used to working around these items. We want you to be present and engaged during the sessions or have scheduled touch base times. This isn't like hiring house cleaners where you can kind of leave and come back to a finished product. Your input is really essential. We need to understand why you've been keeping certain items and what your daily routines actually look like. Now, if a system feels too complex or you're getting overwhelmed, say something immediately. We can explain why we're suggesting it, but if it still doesn't feel right for you and your life, we'll find something simpler, something better, something different. The best organizing system is the one you'll actually use. And here's something that might surprise you. A lot of our work is emotional support. Letting go of belongings can be really, really hard. Maybe it's your grandmother's china that you never use but feel guilty donating. Maybe it's clothes from when you were a different size. We've helped thousands of people work through these feelings. You're not just hiring someone to fold your clothes, you're hiring someone who understands that your stuff has stories.
Absolutely. So I think we've covered a lot of our perspective as professional organizers, but we did ask in our community through our newsletter and also our monthly lives, which we would love for you to check out. But we did ask them, like, if you were to hire a professional organizer, what are some of the questions and concerns that you have? So, Mary, maybe we can just kind of quickly go through the list and just kind of give our initial thoughts. I'll go first, and then if you have anything to add, let me know. So the first question is, what if the suggestion you have doesn't work for me? So, like Mary said, just like a second ago, I know both of us like allow our customers like if you have a quick question or you can't find something or you just need to tweak something quickly, you can feel free to text us after. And if it's a quick question, we can do it. But we can also come back out. Again, like we talked about in the organizing videos, sometimes that optimize phase, you really have to live with the system to make sure that it works for you. And so if it's an issue, call your professional organizer. Usually they'll come back out and help you tweak it in another session.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, we want the system to work for you and your family. Do I need to buy containers before organizers arrive? No. No, no, no. Do not buy anything. You cannot buy containers until everything has been decluttered, you know what you have, it's organized, and my guess is the vast majority of houses I work in already have adequate bins and containers and holders for things. It's rare to have to buy a lot of additional containers. Because the idea is you're going to hopefully wind up with less things. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Or we can find something that you can use temporary, just like we talked about in the 5-step process. So, and then send you recommendations for containers that we think would fit into that space. It's a lot easier than having to work around a pile of containers that you might not even use.
Hmm.
Okay, Mary, what if they're emotional and they cry during the session?
I might cry with you. I'm a very emotional person, and I have clients that sometimes we just have a little cry session and a little hug session, and there is nothing wrong with that. Now, not everybody is as comfortable with that as I am, but if people cry, I mean, it's a release because they are either grieving or sometimes they cry when they're happy. But that is okay. I would hope you would be emotional because as I said, your stuff has stories. Your
Mhm.
items have a history. And a lot of this is you're letting go of things and you're kind of re-experiencing some items. So if you cry, that is fine. I don't know of a professional organizer that hasn't herself shed a few tears or had clients shed some tears. So it's
Yeah,
perfectly fine.
it is. It's perfectly okay. And it's okay for you to also take a break. Sometimes we can continue to work while you get yourself together, and then you can just pick up when you get back in. Can I hire a professional organizer for just one room?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we usually do one room a session, depending on how bad it is. It just, again, you probably want to make sure that it's about 3 hours of work because, again, it costs us money if it's less than 3 hours. So just typically kind of keeping that in mind.
And what I found out is maybe they hire you initially to say, do their pantry. And then the pantry's done, and they're like, well, that was really great. Can we work on the master bedroom closet? Sure, why not?
Hmm.
And then it kind of evolves. Oh, how about the playroom? Or how about my craft room? So a lot of times what starts out as one kind of evolves into something else. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What if I truly don't know where to start? Contact a professional organizer.
Yes.
So we are actually really good at figuring out like a whole house plan. Now, we don't necessarily create that initially, right? Because that takes time and energy on our part. But if you really just want to have like a professional organizer come in, typically what I do in that situation, Mary, because that's what I usually get called out for, is they don't know where they want to start,
Mhm.
is we'll just kind of come in, we'll talk about your organizing style, we'll talk about your pain points, and then we'll just start in usually what is an easier area, like the kitchen or the entryway, because there's usually less emotional items in there. And
Mhm.
we can kind of judge how you're doing and start making those systems. But we may also notice like this section is going to really need to get cleared before we can make progress in this section, right? So we want to make sure we're making forward progress. And so sometimes we got to clear up the entryway so we can actually get the items out of the house, right? Or we need to clear up the pantry so we can make room for the kitchen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's Tetris. Sometimes it's Tetris, and that's fine. Do I need to clean up ahead of time? Please don't. And I'll tell you why. For me, when I look at your space tells me a lot. The corner on the counter tells me that's where everybody drops the paperwork when they walk in from the mailbox. Or there might be a trail that tells me, okay, this is the path people take through the house. There's just a lot of information I can get from the state of your house about how your family lives and uses its space. So,
Mhm. And like we talked about, usually it's not the items that are out are the problem, it's the items that are in the storage space where those items go that you're going to be working on. So you actually could be focusing on the wrong items to begin with. As far as like decluttering before you arrive, if you get that urge to purge and you feel comfortable, that's okay. But again, take that before photo. So like Mary said, if you do declutter your active stuff, we can see it. But also when my clients start sometimes to declutter beforehand, they get overwhelmed because they're just not ready to go through the whole process, right? So I would encourage them, instead of actually getting rid of items, make a list of the items that you think that you want to go. Kind of use that mindset piece first, right?
Yes, and then you can have the flip side where I had a client who was really ready to go, and
Hmm.
before I ever got to work on her main bedroom closet, she had already gotten rid of, she had 16 bags of clothes ready to go out the door. I
Hmm.
was so happy because we could really just focus on what was left.
Yeah. So
So
if you're not overwhelmed and you know you want to get rid of it, get rid of it. That's cool. Ideally, take a photo just so we can kind of see it. But that also allows us when we come in to help you with the harder stuff that you might have more difficulty deciding if you're keeping or not, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, the final question we had submitted, Mary, was what happens after the area is organized? Can they come back to help?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Please. I'd be thrilled to come back.
yeah.
A lot of times it's tweaking. We talked about that. Sometimes, like I said, I may have set up the organization the prior Christmas, but they called me after this Christmas to come and put it all away again.
Hmm.
There's a lot of reasons that we are thrilled to come back, or if just something isn't working, or you had a
Yeah.
life change. You know, senior parents might move in, kids move out, households change and shift, needs change and shift.
Hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. Just because an area is quote unquote organized doesn't mean that we are done and done.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also budget. So like I know Mary, like I don't do permanent labeling. Like if I have to get my label maker out, that takes so much time. It's like craft hour, putting those labels on. So a lot of times we'll use like sticky notes or masking tape and stuff until they're ready to finalize it.
Mhm.
And for some clients, like they're more on a budget and they're like, I want to spend this much each month. So we can kind of do a space and then once all that's done, come back in and beautify it for you.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
aesthetically though. We're still not that
Functionally,
qualified. I'm not gonna help you
functionally,
pick your paint colors, but I will help you label your bins.
I can label a bin. Function, function. Oh, that's funny. Yes. Now, here's the bottom line. Try it out.
Mhm.
You may find it's the best investment of all time for both investing your money and your time. And even if the first organizer isn't a perfect match, at least you've gotten started on the process. And remember, you're the leader of the process. A good organizer really is your guide, not your boss. Organizing your space really can change how you feel about your home. I mean, I see this every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you're ready, go ahead and grab that free printable checklist in the description box below, as well as checking out some of the videos that we mentioned during this video itself, so that you have other resources. And we would love it if you would subscribe to our channel and join us on one of our next monthly lives. Until next time, friends, cheers.
There's
Bye.